Okay, kids, we are really getting close to finishing up all of this misplaced modifiers, phrases, clauses stuff that we need to do. The main focus for today is going to be taking sentences and being able to identify chunks of phrases, chunks of words that are used as different parts of speech in the sentence. So ideas are written, or ideas that are in writing are expressed in groups that are called clauses. They're simple, compound, complex, and compound-complex clauses. You know them as sentence types, but sometimes clauses aren't all sentences. But a clause has to have a subject and a verb. Like if you look at the examples, Aaron ran, Vanessa burped, and Gabriel sleeps. Each one of them has a person or a place or a thing that is doing something or is being talked about in that clause. Inside of clauses, there are all of the other words that are doing things, like adjectives, adverbs, and all kinds of phrases that we've been talking about. Phrases are groups of words that are acting like nouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs, or possibly something else in a sentence. Normally those four things: nouns, verbs, adjectives, or adverbs. So for example, if you take this again, before class, Aaron ran to the small store to get Cheetos. Now I've added the prepositional phrase before class, I've added to the small store, which is a prepositional phrase, and I've added to get Cheetos, but all you really need to know is that those groups of words are acting like adjectives and adverbs to support the subject and the verb. In the second one, her stomach cramping, Vanessa burped up a lot of air. So I still have Vanessa and burped as the core part of the sentence, but now I've added the absolute phrase, her stomach cramping, and the adverb up, and then I've got a lot of air. So I've got a prepositional phrase. But the main point here is you need to be able to always find the heart of the sentence. What is that sentence about? Sometimes those parts of speech, nouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs, are actually made up of phrases. And they can be the subject or the verb of that clause. For example, pizza is bad. Pizza is the subject, is the verb, bad is an adjective. Now you've got pizza is bad for you. You've got this group acting as a prepositional phrase, which is now an adverb. You've got eating pizza after exercise. Now that entire thing is a gerund. It's the subject of the sentence. That's what this sentence is about. It's not just that exercise can be bad for you and that pizza can be bad for you, but it's eating pizza after exercise. That is what this subject is about. This sentence is about. That's called a gerund, being used as the subject of the sentence. Can be causing. Now you've got a verb phrase that is the entire verb. And you've got to have health problems. That's an infinitive phrase acting as an adjective. So now you have three different phrases, but they are acting as the noun, the verb, and the adjective of that sentence. Remember, clauses should only have one core meaning. It always has to have a subject, which is a noun or a pronoun doing something, and it has to have a verb, which is either an action or it's one of these cool linking verbs that is in the sentence. For example, his strange and annoying donkey brayed all night long. That the heart of that sentence is that the donkey brayed. Brayed is that funny noise that donkeys make. In this one, that man and his friends climbed the rock and fell off the rock. The heart of that sentence, no matter how much is in there, is man and friends is the subject, climbed and fell is the verb. And this one down here, we will be celebrating having a new car soon. This clause, this sentence is not about a car, it's about celebrating. We is the subject, will be celebrating is the verb. So you always have to be able to find the subject and the verb, and then find any groups of words like phrases that are acting together as something else in the sentence. And remember, sometimes the subject and the verb are the sentence. Now, a lot of you are probably like, I want to just skip forward in this stupid video and get on to what I have to do. But this is why you actually, it does kind of help to know why it is you need to know this. If you look at, I want you to stop the video in just a second and ask yourself, of these sentences, these 5 sentences that are written, which one of them is written incorrectly? Like I would have to fix that sentence because there's something wrong with it. Stop the video and look at them. What you should notice is that every single one of those clauses or sentences is wrong. If you wrote them, you would be writing incorrect sentences. So for example, number 1, that student chewing his gum loudly. Well, you have a participle, chewing his gum loudly, that's describing the student, but it's not a complete sentence. It's missing the entire verb of the sentence. When the magician comes to town, you have a magician and you have a subject and a verb comes to town, but you don't have the rest of the sentence. That's a fragment. When the magician comes to town, we will go to the magic show. That's actually a complete thought. Unfortunately, you have to have a comma right there if you want to connect those 2 clauses together. I hope we get to go because it will be awesome. Well, you've got 2 clauses together, but it shouldn't have a comma there. Shining a flashlight in the guy's face, the officer checked the man's sobriety, but he failed miserably. Well, this is an absolute phrase, which needs to have a comma, separating it from the rest of the sentence, and this is 2 clauses stuck together, and that needs to have a comma to connect that coordinating conjunction. So every single one of those clauses is actually wrong, and if you wrote that way, you would be making a lot of mistakes in your writing. When you're doing the test, you have to recognize those mistakes that are being made and then fix them. So there is actually a reason why you need to know this. So now you're going to get the worksheet out that goes along with this video. It starts up, it has a little giant caterpillar at the top of it, and it says sentences must have subjects and verbs. So here again, we're going to do part of it, you're going to complete it, and then you're going to check your answers and take the test. Prepositions. The very first section that you have to review, remember all of the stuff we're reviewing in this first section are phrases that are acting as modifiers. So this first section is prepositions. What you have to do is identify the subject, the verb, and then write down any prepositional modifiers that are in the sentence. So, the extremely large dog from my neighbor's house barked at my friend. The subject is dog. The verb is barked. Are there any prepositional phrases? You would write them on the line. Yes, there are. From the neighbor's house is a prepositional phrase, and at my friend. You're going to write those on the modifiers line. Stop this video. Do sentences 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the packet, and then check your answers. Stop the video now. Okay, you should check your answers. Remember, you have to find the subject, the entire verb or verb team, and then any prepositional modifiers. Okay, the next section, infinitives. Infinitives always have the word to with them. They act as adjectives, adverbs, or nouns sometimes. So the girl in the car, to get a better price for the new tires, tried to flirt with the salesman. So girl is the subject. What is she doing? The girl tried. You're going to find yourself some infinitives. To get a better price for new tires and to flirt with the salesman are both infinitive phrases that are being used to help modify the subject girl and the verb tried. You're going to put those on the modifiers line. Go ahead and stop the video. Do sentences 4, 5, and 6. Then check your answers. Okay, so here again, just make sure you got the correct subject and the correct verb, the entire verb, and then that you've located any infinitive phrases that go with it. The next section, participles. Participles are always used as adjectives, and they always have either ing or some sort of past tense, ed form of a verb. They are verbs that are not being verbs in the sentence. In this case, the guy digging a hole in his yard looked like a murderer. Guy. What was he doing? He looked. Oh, okay, that doesn't quite look right. And then digging a hole in his yard, that is an ing verb. So we call it a participle, but it's not being the verb in the sentence. It's just modifying the subject guy. That goes on the line for modifiers. The subject is Guy. What did he do? He looked. That's his verb. Okay, go ahead and do sentences. You'll do sentences on the worksheet 7, 8, and 9, but before you do that, take a look at this next example. So you've got the shirt torn from his body was full of holes. Shirt is the subject, was is the verb, and now you've got another participle phrase that is being used to modify shirt. Just keep in mind, participles don't always have to modify the subject. They can modify any noun in the sentence. In this case, you've got torn, which is the past tense of the word tear. That is the verb that is used to modify that. So now stop the video, do sentences 7, 8, and 9, and then check your answers. Okay, make sure you got the complete subject and verb. Okay, absolutes. Here again, you have to check absolutes. It should be something that has a noun, like sun, and an ing or a past tense verb, like a participle, that is being used to modify the entire sentence. So you should have Tanya enjoyed, and the sun shining brightly above her all day is the absolute phrase modifying the whole sentence. Go ahead and stop the video and check your answers for absolutes. Okay, so else is the subject, stopped is the verb, her eyes watering from the sun is the absolute. Teacher warned, this is the absolute for that, and players celebrated, that is the absolute for the next one. Okay, gerunds. You're going to have to refer to your phrase sheet, your phrase chart, if you haven't had any information about gerunds. Gerunds are ing verbs, just like participles, but they're being used as nouns instead of adjectives. So, eating worms is gross. If you can put the words the idea of above it and it makes sense, then you know it's a noun as a gerund instead of a participle. The idea of eating worms is gross. Noun. I don't like the idea of eating worms. That's a noun. But in this one, the man eating those worms, that's a participle. So just don't get gerunds and participles confused. Sometimes it's tricky. Okay, this practice, growing loudly at strangers, is his specialty. So growing loudly at strangers, that's supposed to say growling loudly at strangers. That's your subject. What is the verb? Is. And then there aren't any modifiers because the modifier that you chose, or the phrase that we chose, is actually this, and it's the subject of the sentence. So there isn't anything to go on the modifiers. So in this section, there may or may not be modifiers. It could be that the phrase you're choosing is actually the subject or the verb. Go ahead and stop, do sentences 13, 14, and 15, and check your answers. Okay, so the first one, dancing in the ballet is the subject of that sentence. That's what that sentence is about. It's not about ballet, it's not about dancing, it's about dancing in the ballet. And the verb is. And the second one, kids is the subject. What did they do? They tried. Making a fire on a seat is the modifier. That's the phrase. That's what they tried to do. Next one, ways is the subject. Are is the verb. Getting extra money for clothes and shoes is a noun. It's the idea of getting extra money for clothes and shoes that is what the sentence is about. Okay, infinitives. Infinitives can also be subjects of sentences. So, for example, to growl at people is his specialty. Yeah, I wrote it right. That's the subject. Is the verb. And here again, there may or may not be a modifier. It depends on how it's being used. Stop this and do sentences 16, 17, and 18. Check your answers. The lizard likes to sit on the tree branch. To be a huge star is the subject in number 2. And then the girl's dream is to be a huge star is also a noun. So remember, if you can put the words the idea of, it's a noun. And the last part, appositives. Appositives are words that rename or clarify the noun right in front of it. You can look at your chart to see the examples. So the one in the green plants is clarifying the word kid. Go ahead and do this practice. The large dog, the German Shepherd over there, growled at the intruder. Dog is the subject. Growled is the verb. Eek. And the German Shepherd over there is an appositive phrase clarifying which dog you're talking about. Go ahead and do the Last sentences and check your answers.